10 perfect vegetables to grow in a shady garden space. Hey there, fellow plant lovers. Welcome back to Earthly Delights, your go-to place for all things green and growing. If you're here, chances are you love plants just as much as I do. But maybe, just maybe, you've struggled with a shady garden space and wondered, can I actually grow vegetables here? If that sounds like you, don't worry, you're not alone. Many home gardeners, whether you're tending to a cozy backyard, a balcony garden, or even a small urban space, often find themselves dealing with limited sunlight. Maybe it's a tall building next door, a big old tree, or just the natural layout of your garden. And let's be honest, it can feel frustrating when you think your options are limited. But here's the good news. Shade doesn't mean no garden. In fact, there are plenty of vegetables that love a little break from the sun. With the right choices and care, you can turn your shady spots into lush, productive gardens. In today's video, we're diving deep into 10 of the best vegetables that thrive in shade. We'll go beyond just listing names. I'll share why these plants work, how to grow them, and pro tips to get the best results. So stick with me till the end, because you might just find your next favorite crop. And hey, if you love learning about plants, don't forget to subscribe to Earthly Delights and hit that notification bell. Let's keep growing together. Now, let's get started. Now that we know shade doesn't mean the end of a productive garden, let's talk about one of the best vegetables to grow in low-light conditions, spinach. If you've ever struggled with leafy greens bolting too quickly under the scorching sun, you'll love how well spinach adapts to cooler, shaded environments. Picture this: a lush, green patch of tender spinach leaves thriving right in that quiet corner of your garden, untouched by the harsh afternoon heat. Unlike sun-loving vegetables that demand full exposure, spinach actually prefers partial shade, especially in warmer climates. The best part? It grows quickly, allowing you to enjoy multiple harvests throughout the season. Growing spinach is incredibly simple. If you're just getting started, sow the seeds directly into moist, well-draining soil, since it thrives in cool conditions. Early spring and fall are ideal for planting. If you live in a region with hot summers, a shaded spot can extend your growing season, preventing your plants from bolting too soon. And here's a pro tip: if you want a steady supply of fresh spinach, stagger your plantings every 2 weeks for continuous harvests. Now, let's talk about care. Spinach may be low maintenance, but it does appreciate consistent watering. Because shaded areas retain moisture longer than sunny spots, you won't need to water as often. But always check the soil. If the top inch feels dry, it's time to give your plants a drink. Mulching around your spinach can help maintain soil moisture and keep weeds at bay, making your gardening experience even easier. Harvesting spinach is just as rewarding as growing it. Instead of pulling the whole plant, simply snip off the outer leaves as needed, and let the inner ones continue growing. This way, your spinach keeps producing, giving you fresh, homegrown greens for weeks on end. Imagine stepping outside, plucking a handful of crisp spinach leaves, and tossing them straight into your next meal. There's nothing quite like it. But spinach isn't the only shade-friendly green that deserves a spot in your garden. Up next, we're talking about a vegetable that's just as easy to grow but adds a pop of color and a nutritious punch to your plate. Stay with me. You won't want to miss this one. If you love fresh, crisp salads, then you're going to love growing lettuce in your shady garden. This leafy green is one of the easiest vegetables to cultivate. And the best part? It actually prefers a little shade. Unlike many sun-loving crops that struggle with heat stress, lettuce thrives in cooler environments, making it a perfect candidate for those tucked-away garden spots that don't get full sun. Think about it. How many times have you bought a head of lettuce from the store, only to have it wilt in your fridge within days? Now, imagine stepping outside, reaching down, and harvesting your own fresh, organic lettuce whenever you need it. No waste, no wilt, just crisp, flavorful leaves straight from your garden to your plate. Getting started with lettuce is incredibly easy. You can sow seeds directly into the soil or start with transplants if you want a head start. Since lettuce grows quickly, you won't have to wait long to enjoy your first harvest. And if you want a steady supply, plant new seeds every 2 weeks. This technique, called succession planting, ensures you'll always have fresh lettuce ready to pick. Caring for lettuce in the shade is a breeze, because the soil in shaded areas stays cooler and retains moisture longer. You won't need to water as often as you would in a sunny bed. However, make sure the soil stays consistently moist. Dry spells can cause the leaves to become bitter. Adding a layer of mulch around your plants can help regulate moisture and prevent weeds from taking over. One of the best things about growing lettuce is how versatile it is. You can harvest individual leaves as you need them or wait until the whole head matures. And with so many varieties to choose from, romaine, butterhead, loose leaf, you can grow a mix of textures and flavors that'll make every salad feel like a gourmet meal. Lettuce may be a shade-loving superstar, but it's not the only green that can thrive in lower light. Coming up next, we have a plant that's as stunning as it is nutritious, adding vibrant color and a bold, earthy flavor to your garden. Stay with me. This next one is truly a showstopper. If you're looking for a vegetable that brings both beauty and function to your shady garden, look no further than Swiss chard. With its vibrant stalks in shades of red, yellow, pink, and orange, this leafy green doesn't just add a splash of color to your garden, it also packs a serious nutritional punch. And the best part? It thrives in partial shade, making it one of the most rewarding crops to grow when you're working with limited sunlight. Swiss chard is one of those vegetables that keeps on giving. Unlike some greens that need to be replanted every few weeks, chard can be harvested continuously for months. You simply snip off the outer leaves as needed, and the plant keeps producing new growth from the center. That means one plant can supply you with fresh, homegrown greens for an entire season, sometimes even longer. Getting Swiss chard started is easy. You can sow the seeds directly into your garden bed or start them indoors if you want a head start. Since the seeds are large and a bit rough, soaking them overnight before planting can speed up germination. Once they sprout, all they need is rich, well-draining soil and consistent moisture. Because chard has deep roots, it appreciates a good soak every few days rather than frequent light watering. One of the biggest perks of growing chard in partial shade is that it prevents the leaves from turning bitter. In hot, sunny conditions, chard can develop a stronger taste that not everyone enjoys. But in a shady spot, the leaves stay tender and mild, perfect for tossing into salads, sautéing with garlic, or adding to soups and stews. And let's talk about color for a second, because Swiss chard isn't just a workhorse in the garden. It's a showstopper. Whether you plant the classic rainbow chard variety or stick to deep red or bright golden stems, it instantly makes your garden look more vibrant. Plus, those bold colors aren't just for show, they indicate high levels of antioxidants, meaning you're getting both beauty and health benefits in one plant. Swiss chard is a true powerhouse, but it's not the only leafy green that can handle shady conditions. Up next, we're talking about a vegetable that's loaded with nutrients, incredibly resilient, and practically thrives on neglect. If you haven't tried growing this next plant before, you're missing out, so stick around. If there's one vegetable that truly thrives in the shade while packing an incredible nutritional punch, it's kale. This dark, leafy green has earned its reputation as a superfood, and for good reason. It's loaded with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, making it one of the healthiest crops you can grow. And here's the best part. Kale actually prefers cooler temperatures, which makes it an excellent choice for those shady spots in your garden. Growing kale is one of the easiest ways to have a continuous supply of fresh greens for months. Unlike spinach or lettuce, which can bolt quickly in warm weather, kale remains productive for an extended period, especially when it's grown in partial shade. The cooler environment keeps the leaves tender, reducing any bitterness that sometimes develops under intense sunlight. Planting kale is simple. You can start it from seed directly in your garden or transplant seedlings for a head start. The key is to give it rich, well-draining soil and plenty of organic matter. Compost or aged manure works wonders. Once established, kale doesn't need much maintenance. It's highly resilient, tolerating cooler temperatures and even bouncing back after a light frost. In fact, some gardeners swear that a touch of frost makes kale even sweeter. Watering is important but manageable, because shaded areas retain moisture better than sunny spots. You won't need to water as frequently. Just make sure the soil stays evenly moist but not soggy. A good layer of mulch can help with this. keeping the soil cool and reducing the need for constant watering. And let's talk about harvesting, because this is where kale really shines. Instead of pulling the entire plant, you can harvest the outer leaves as needed while leaving the center to keep producing. This means a single plant can continue supplying fresh, nutritious greens for months. Whether you toss it into a smoothie, sauté it with garlic, or bake it into crispy kale chips, this plant is as versatile in the kitchen as it is in the garden. Kale is an absolute must-have, but if you're looking for something even quicker to grow, something that's ready to harvest in just a few short weeks, you're going to love our next vegetable. It's fast, it's crunchy, and it's perfect for adding a peppery bite to your salads and sandwiches. Stay with me. You won't want to miss this one. If you're the kind of gardener who loves instant gratification, then radishes are about to become your new best friend. This fast-growing root vegetable is one of the quickest crops you can grow, going from seed to harvest in as little as 3 to 4 weeks. And the best part? It doesn't need full sun to thrive. In fact, growing radishes in a shaded area can actually improve their flavor, keeping them crisp and mild rather than overly spicy. Imagine this. You plant a few radish seeds today, and in just a few weeks, you're pulling up bright red, purple, or even white roots, ready to add a fresh crunch to your meals. It's one of the easiest ways to feel like a gardening pro. Even if you're just getting started, getting radishes started is as simple as it gets. The seeds can be sown directly into the soil, no need for transplants or complicated setups. Just loosen the soil, scatter the seeds, and lightly cover them with dirt. Because radishes don't like to be crowded, thinning the seedlings once they sprout will help ensure you get nice, round roots instead of long, spindly ones. Watering is another key factor. Radishes need consistently moist soil, especially in a shady garden where the moisture doesn't evaporate as quickly. If the soil dries out too much, the radishes can become tough and overly sharp in flavor. A simple trick? A thin layer of mulch can help keep the soil evenly damp without overwatering. Now, let's talk about harvesting. Unlike other root vegetables that take months to mature, radishes are ready to be pulled as soon as they reach a good size, usually within a month. Don't leave them in the ground too long, though. Overgrown radishes can become woody and lose their crunch. The greens are also edible, so don't throw them away. Sauté them with garlic, toss them into a salad, or blend them into a pesto for a peppery kick. Radishes may be small, but they're one of the most satisfying crops to grow in a shady garden. And if you're looking for something that climbs, something that takes advantage of vertical space while thriving in partial shade, our next vegetable is a must-have. It's delicate, delicious, and will keep producing as long as you keep harvesting. Stay with me. We're about to add some height to your garden. If you've ever dreamed of having a garden that not only looks beautiful but also gives you a steady supply of sweet, fresh produce, then peas are the perfect addition to your shady garden. These delicate vines don't just tolerate partial shade, they actually appreciate it, especially as temperatures rise. And the best part? The more you harvest, the more they produce, keeping your garden full of fresh, crisp pods for weeks. Picture this. A tangle of green vines climbing up a trellis, dotted with delicate white flowers that soon transform into plump, juicy peas. Whether you prefer sugar snap peas, snow peas, or classic shelling peas, these plants bring life to your garden while making the most of vertical space. That means even if you're working with a small area, like a balcony, patio, or compact backyard, you can still enjoy a bountiful harvest. Growing peas is easy and rewarding. They prefer cool weather, so the best time to plant is in early spring or late summer for a fall harvest. Unlike other crops that need deep soil, peas have shallow roots, which makes them ideal for raised beds and containers. Simply plant the seeds directly into the soil, give them something to climb on, and watch them take off. One of the biggest benefits of growing peas in a shady spot is that it helps extend their growing season. In full sun, peas can struggle in warmer temperatures, often wilting and producing fewer pods. But in partial shade, they stay lush and productive for much longer. Just make sure to water consistently, since they have shallow roots. They need moisture to keep producing those crisp, sweet pods. Harvesting peas is one of the most satisfying moments in gardening. As soon as the pods are plump and firm, they're ready to be picked. And here's a little trick: the more you harvest, the more your plants will produce. So don't be shy, check your plants daily. Pluck those pods, and enjoy them straight from the vine. Peas are an absolute joy to grow. But if you're looking for something even hardier, something that thrives in shade while giving you a steady supply of protein-packed goodness, you're going to love what's coming next. It's easy to grow, highly productive, and surprisingly tolerant of lower light conditions. Stick with me. You won't want to miss this one. If you love growing your own vegetables but thought beans needed full sun, think again. Bush beans are one of the most adaptable crops you can grow. And while they do love the sun, they can still produce a surprisingly good yield in partial shade. The trick is choosing the right variety and making a few small adjustments to help them thrive. Imagine stepping into your garden, reaching down, and finding clusters of tender, crisp beans hanging from compact, bushy plants. No long vines to manage, no trellises required, just a neat little patch of productivity that keeps on giving. Whether you're growing green beans, yellow wax beans, or even purple varieties, bush beans bring a burst of fresh flavor to your homegrown meals. Growing bush beans is as easy as it gets. Unlike pole beans, which need something to climb, bush beans stay low and compact, making them perfect for small gardens, raised beds, and even containers. The best way to start them is by direct sowing the seeds. They don't transplant well, so planting them right where they'll grow is the way to go. Since beans are nitrogen-fixing plants, they even help improve your soil over time, making them a fantastic addition to any garden. Because they don't get as much sun in a shady spot, bush beans might take a little longer to mature. But don't worry, they'll still produce. A good rule of thumb is to choose fast-maturing varieties, like Contender or Provider, which are more forgiving in lower light conditions. Watering is also key, since shade helps soil retain moisture. You won't need to water as often, but keeping the soil evenly moist will ensure healthy, productive plants. One of the best things about bush beans? They keep producing as long as you keep harvesting. Once the plants start flowering and setting beans, make it a habit to pick them regularly. The more you harvest, the more your plants will continue to grow, giving you a steady supply of crisp, delicious beans for weeks. Bush beans are one of those crops that prove shade doesn't have to limit your garden's potential. But if you're looking for a root vegetable that does just as well in lower light, and gives you 2 edible harvests from the same plant, you'll love what's coming up next. Stay with me, because this next one is both beautiful and delicious. If you're looking for a vegetable that thrives in shade, produces not just 1 but 2 edible harvests, and adds a splash of deep, earthy color to your garden, then beets are a perfect choice. This root vegetable is surprisingly shade tolerant, and while it may take a little longer to reach full size in lower light conditions, the payoff is absolutely worth it. Imagine pulling a bright, ruby red beet from the soil, its deep green leaves streaked with red veins, swaying in the breeze. Most people think of beets only for their roots. But here's a little secret: the greens are just as valuable. Tender and packed with nutrients. Beet greens taste a lot like Swiss chard and can be used fresh in salads or sautéed like spinach. So with one plant, you get double the harvest: delicious greens early on and sweet, earthy beets later. Getting beets started is easy. You can sow the seeds directly into the soil. But here's something to keep in mind. Each beet seed is actually a little cluster of multiple seeds, meaning you'll likely get several plants sprouting from a single spot. Once they reach a few inches tall, thinning them out is essential. Don't toss those extra seedlings, though. The baby greens are delicious and make a perfect addition to your next salad. Since beets are a root crop, soil quality is key. Loose, well-draining soil will help the roots develop properly, even in shaded areas where moisture tends to linger longer. If your soil is heavy with clay, consider raised beds or mixing in some sand and compost to improve drainage. Beets don't require a ton of care. Just keep the soil consistently moist and add a layer of mulch to help retain moisture. Because they grow a bit slower in shade, you may need to wait a little longer than usual for the roots to reach full size. But trust me, the wait is worth it. And if you're feeling impatient, Harvest some of the leaves early on while you wait for the roots to develop. Few vegetables offer as much versatility as beets. But if you're looking for a vegetable that's even easier to grow, one that practically takes care of itself in a shady garden, our next pick is perfect. You won't have to wait long for results. And you can grow it in even the smallest garden spaces. Stay with me. This next one is a must-have. If you're looking for a vegetable that practically takes care of itself, keeps growing even after you harvest it, and adds a fresh, oniony kick to your meals, then green onions are a must-have for your shady garden. Unlike bulb onions, which need lots of sun and time to develop, green onions, or scallions, are quick, easy, and incredibly forgiving in lower light conditions. Imagine stepping outside with a pair of kitchen shears, snipping a handful of fresh green onions, and tossing them straight into your next dish. Whether you're garnishing soups, mixing them into salads, or adding them to stir-fries, these little flavor bombs are always ready when you need them. And the best part? They keep growing back after each harvest, so you get a continuous supply without having to replant. Starting green onions is as simple as it gets. You can grow them from seeds, transplants, or even kitchen scraps. If you've ever bought a bunch of green onions from the store, don't toss the root ends, just place them in a glass of water. And within days, you'll see fresh green shoots sprouting. Once they develop strong roots, plant them in your garden, and they'll continue growing with minimal effort. Because green onions have shallow roots, they don't need deep soil, making them perfect for small spaces, raised beds, and containers. In a shady garden, they grow a little slower than in full sun, but they still thrive as long as the soil stays moist. Since they don't take up much space, you can tuck them into little corners of your garden, between other plants, or even in window boxes. Caring for green onions is effortless. Water them regularly, but don't overdo it, since they grow in shaded areas where moisture lingers longer. Too much water can lead to rot. A thin layer of mulch will help retain moisture while keeping weeds at bay. And when it's time to harvest, just snip off the green tops, and they'll keep regrowing. If you prefer larger scallions, let them grow longer before cutting. Green onions are one of the easiest and most rewarding vegetables to grow. But if you're looking for an herb that not only thrives in shade but also enhances nearly every dish you cook, you're going to love what's coming next. It's fragrant, versatile, and absolutely thrives in lower light conditions. Stick with me. This next one is a kitchen essential. If you've ever struggled with keeping herbs alive in your garden, you're not alone. Many popular herbs, like basil and rosemary, crave intense sunlight and tend to wither in too much shade. But cilantro and parsley, they thrive in lower light conditions, making them the perfect choice for your shady garden. Think about how often you use fresh herbs in your cooking. A handful of chopped cilantro can instantly brighten up tacos, soups, or salads, while parsley adds a fresh, earthy balance to almost any dish. Now, imagine having these fragrant greens growing just steps from your kitchen, ready to snip whenever you need a burst of flavor. No more sad, wilted herbs from the grocery store, just fresh, homegrown goodness whenever you want it. Growing cilantro and parsley is refreshingly simple. They can be started from seeds or transplants. But if you're starting from seed, be patient. Both can take a little longer to germinate. A pro tip? Soaking the seeds in water overnight before planting can speed up the process. Once they sprout, they require very little care beyond occasional watering and harvesting. Because cilantro and parsley prefer cooler temperatures, growing them in partial shade helps prevent them from bolting too quickly. If you've ever had cilantro suddenly shoot up with flowers and turn bitter, you know how frustrating that can be. A shaded spot slows this process down, keeping the leaves fresh and flavorful for much longer. Watering is easy. Both herbs like moist but well-drained soil. Be careful not to overwater, especially in a shady garden where moisture lingers longer. A light layer of mulch can help maintain the perfect balance, keeping the soil cool and preventing it from drying out too quickly. Harvesting is where the magic happens. The more you trim, the more they grow. Simply snip off outer leaves as needed, and the plants will keep producing new growth. For the best flavor, pick cilantro before it flowers. And for parsley, remove older leaves first to encourage fresh growth from the center. Cilantro and parsley are true staples for any shady garden. But as we wrap up our list, let's step back and talk about how to make the most of your entire shady space. Whether you're growing vegetables, herbs, or a mix of both, there are a few simple tricks that can boost your yields and make your garden even more productive. Stay with me, because up next, we're diving into the best tips for maximizing your shady garden's potential. So, there you have it, 10 amazing vegetables and herbs that thrive in shady gardens. If you've ever thought that limited sunlight meant you couldn't grow your own fresh produce, I hope this video has changed your mind. With the right plant choices and a little bit of care, even the shadiest corners of your garden can turn into a lush, productive oasis. Remember, gardening isn't about having the perfect conditions, it's about working with what you have. Maybe your garden only gets a few hours of sunlight, or maybe you're growing in a small urban space with buildings casting shadows. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy homegrown food. It just means you need to be smart about your plant choices and make the most of the conditions you're working with. So, whether you're planting leafy greens like spinach and kale, quick-growing radishes, climbing peas, or shade-loving herbs, the key is to experiment and find what works best for your space. Every garden is different, and sometimes the most unexpected crops will surprise you with just how well they perform. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's your experience with growing in the shade? Have you had success with any of these plants? Or do you have another favorite shade-tolerant vegetable? Drop a comment below and share your gardening stories. I always love learning from this amazing community. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Earthly Delights for more tips, inspiration, and gardening wisdom. There's always something new to learn, and I'm excited to keep growing with you. Until next time, happy gardening, and I'll see you in the next video.